What's up, sisters? This is your boy, Beef, and welcome back to the channel for another modded companion build guide for Baldur's Gate 3. Over the past couple of weeks, we've been creating a fully modded Ultra Party using all of the companions so we can run around Faerun with every single companion in our party at one time. After completing the Origin companions, minus the Dark Urge, it's time to cover the non-Origin companions, and today we're building Mommy Minthara into the ultimate Paladin of the Absolute. For this build, we're going to be downloading the Oath of Conquest Paladin subclass from the mod manager, and multiclassing it with the Great Old One Warlock. These two subclasses are both charisma-based and revolved around a unique application of the fear status effect, so there's going to be some really great synergy here. From Xanathar's Guide to Everything, the Oath of Conquest calls to paladins who seek glory in battle and the subjugation of their enemies. It isn't enough for these paladins to establish order, they must crush the forces of chaos, sometimes called Night Tyrants or Ironmongers. Those who swear this oath gather into grim orders that serve gods or philosophies of war and well-ordered might. In my opinion, this is a perfect subclass for Minthara, who as a drow is all about crushing the opposition with significant strength and, well, conquesting. So, kind of fits. Additionally, the Great Old One Warlock is an individual who has made a pact with a, quote, mysterious entity whose nature is utterly foreign to the fabric of reality. It might come from the far realm, the space beyond reality, or it could be one of the Elder Gods only known in legends. Its motives are incomprehensible to mortals, and its knowledge so immense and ancient that even the greatest libraries pale in comparison to the vast secrets it holds. Which I think is an excellent representation of the Absolute. Although Gulaks, which I will call them, usually have pacts with beings like Cthulhu or Tharizdun, so far removed from any sense of reality that they're fully unknowable. I think the Absolute can fit the bill as well, because it's an Elder Brain. But now that we've gone over the lore of the subclasses, let's get to building. Quick disclaimer, you might notice that this is not Minthara. The save file that I use for my build guides is one where Minthara has been dead since Act 1. So I have a random drow hireling here in her place. Regardless, at level 1, we are going to be starting by taking our first level in Paladin, and we're going to make a beeline straight for our subclass, which is going to be the Oath of Conquest, obviously. We want to start with Paladin because this will give us proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor, which are both truly invaluable for this build. The Oath of Conquest has a unique use for its oath charges. Here we have Chosen Adversary that we get at level 1. Mark an enemy as the focus point of your zealous pursuit. You have advantage on attack rolls against the target, and when you hit them with a melee attack, they might become frightened until the end of their next turn or when they take damage, and this effect will last for 3 turns. So this is really useful at this level because it means we can target a boss and chop them down big time and possibly frighten them at the same time, so we can really shut down an enemy. We can also see here the subclass features includes the Oath of Conquest tenets, and we will go ahead and read these real quick. We have here, Douse the Flame of Hope. It is not enough to merely defeat an enemy in battle. Your victory must be so overwhelming that your enemy's will to fight is shattered forever. A blade can end a life, fear can end an empire. Rule with an iron fist. Once you have conquered, tolerate no dissent. Your word is law. Those who obey it shall be favored. Those who defy it shall be punished as an example to all who might follow. And strength above all, you shall rule until a stronger one arises. Then you must grow mightier and meet the challenge or fall to your own ruin. I think this perfectly fits with Minthara as a drow because it kind of matches drow culture, but it also really fits well with the Absolute and that whole kind of military conquest, feel of their whole kind of thing. For our ability scores, we're going to be taking a 16 in both strength and charisma to start. You can put your +2 and your +1 into either. I have put our +2 into strength here and our +1 into charisma. As long as they're both 16, you are good to go. Eventually, this build is going to be taking the Warlock Pact of the Blade, which will enable us to dump our strength in favor of being a single attribute dependent build. It allows us to use our charisma as our attack modifier as well. So this is really awesome because then we can go ahead and dump all of our points in strength. And eventually we are going to be able to put a few of them into some other stats. But for the early levels of the game, we're going to start with 16s so that we can land some attacks up until we get there. Because up until we get the Pact of the Blade, our strength is going to be how we land our attacks. We want a 14 in Constitution because this build is going to be a frontliner and needs a lot of health. We want 12 in Dexterity so that we can get a +1 to our armor class and our initiative. And we are going to go ahead and dump our Intelligence and our Wisdom. Once we get Pact of the Blade, I'm probably going to partition a few of these strength points into Wisdom for saving throws and probably put a few extra into Constitution and maybe into Dexterity as well. We just want to get as many points as we can. Intelligence is not super useful for this character, so go ahead and dump that. At level 2, we are going to take our second level into Paladin, and with this, we are going to get a new fighting style, some new spells, and also get access to our Divine Smites. For our fighting style, I am going to be taking defense for a +1 bonus to our armor class. I have a few extra additions in here from other mods, but none of these are super useful for this build, so I'm going to go ahead and go with defense for a free +1. You could go with great weapon fighting if you wanted to do a heavy weapon build for this character, but I am going to be using a dual wield build instead because I think it does way better. So I am going to take defense to get us a +1 in our armor class. For our spells, we get 5 to choose from at this point. And most of them are going to be concentration spells. You can see here Protection from Evil and Good is concentration, Shield of Faith is concentration, Command is not concentration, Compelled Duel is concentration, Bless is concentration. Most of these, except for Cure Wounds, are pretty heavily concentration effect. So we can really only use one of these at a time. Because of that, I'm going to suggest that we take Shield of Faith as a really good defensive concentration option if we think that we need that. We're also going to take Cure Wounds because that is a really good heal option and doesn't use our concentration. We're going to take Compelled Duel because this is great if we want to tell an enemy to attack just us. And we're also going to take Wrathful Smite. This is a really good spell that also kind of plays into the Frighten aspect of the build. It does cost an action and a bonus action, and it uses your concentration, so you're probably not going to use it very often, but it's really cool to have and really plays into the flavor if you want to. And we're also going to take Bless because it's a really great spell to use if you wanted to. So at level 3, we have our first big decision. Now that we have access to our Divine Smites, we could either keep leveling Paladin or switch over to Warlock. The main drawback here is that by multiclassing this early in the game, you'll be delaying your extra attack. That said, Warlock is going to give us access to a passive ability that is very integral to this build, Mortal Reminder, which we also get at level 1. So just this one time, I am going to delay our extra attack by 1 level so we can nab that free passive and a cantrip that will help boost our damage anyway. So at this point, we are going to open up our multi-class option and take our first level of Warlock. And now that we are also a Warlock, we are going to grab the subclass for the Great Old One. The main ability that we want here is called Mortal Reminder. When you land a critical hit against a creature, that creature and any nearby enemies must succeed a Wisdom saving throw or become frightened until the end of their next turn. That's really awesome. It's at this point that I want to be clear, this is a crit fishing build. Believe it or not, I've never played a crit fishing build on my own, but I think this is the perfect application for one. As a Warlock, we will also get 2 cantrips, and because I have the Mistress Spell mod installed, we have a few additional options available to us. Eldritch Blast is going to be our first pick for any range attacks, and it pairs well with crit fishing builds too, because it uses individual attack rolls. We are also going to cut Bladeboard here and switch it out for Green Flame Blade. Obviously, there are 2 blade cantrips, the other being Booming Blade, which deals extra damage when enemies move after being hit. The reason this isn't useful for our build is that on account of one of our Paladin abilities that we'll get later, enemies who are frightened within a 3-meter range of us will have their movement speeds reduced to 0. So they're not going to be moving no matter what they want to do. So they won't be triggering that Booming Blade effect. Alternatively, if we are in melee range and have more than one enemy who is feared and can't move, the extra damage from Green Flame Blade will be more likely to spread to the additional target. You can see here, attack the target dealing a bonus. It says 0, but it increases as you level up. If the attack lands and you remain stationary, you can spread Green Flame to burn another nearby creature for 3 fire damage. So effectively what this does is it just gives you a little bit of a cleave effect out of it with your extra fire, and gives you just a bunch of extra fire damage that we'll see later. For our spells, we are going to be taking Hex and Dissonant Whispers. These are both really powerful and good for the build. Our Hex isn't super powerful, but because it only does 1d6 necrotic damage, and it uses your concentration slot on a bonus action. But the one thing that's really great about this is this class doesn't have a ton of uses for its bonus action. So what we're going to do is apply Hex, and then every time we get a critical hit, it's going to get double damage off of, or it's going to roll that 1d6 twice. So we'll get 2d6 off of it, which is just really nice to have that extra damage. And we are also going to use Dissonant Whispers, frighten a creature. They'll have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, and they cannot move. It's another really cool option to have frighten, and it really plays with the flavor of this build. A lot of the time when I play a Warlock, I take Armor of Agathis, gain 5 temporary hit points, and deal 5 cold damage to any creature that hits you with a melee attack. However, this class doesn't need it, and I will show you why in about 5 seconds. At level 4, we are going to go back to Paladin so that we can get our next subclass features, of which are included, we get the Command Spell and Armor of Agathis. That's why we don't take it, because we're getting it for free with our subclass. Really great. We're also going to gain Guided Strike. You may strike with supernatural accuracy, gaining a +10 bonus to an attack roll. This uses our channel Oath charge, and you could use it if you wanted to, but it's not super useful because we're gonna be crit fishing anyway, so we don't really need a +10 bonus to our attack rolls. Conquering Presence, on the other hand, is going to be the other main way that we make our enemies fear us. This is a new use for our Oath charges, and it allows us to fear enemies within a 9-meter range of our character. Exude a terrifying presence, possibly causing nearby enemies to become fearful of you. Affected creatures can repeat its saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. So basically what this is going to do is you're just going to walk into the middle of your enemies, you're going to look them in the eye, and you're going to say, "I am the Absolute," and they're going to be afraid of you. They're going to run in all directions. If they're close enough to you, once we get this next ability coming up soon, they won't be able to move at all. They'll just be stuck in place. For our spells, we are mostly just going to add, where is it? Thunderous Smite here, because it's a really cool smite attack, and most of our other abilities are concentration, so we want to grab something that is not concentration. I'm actually gonna, for some reason, command popped up here. I'm gonna trade out command for Shield of Faith. I don't know why it changes these up. Whatever. At level 5, we are going to be taking another level in Paladin so that we can get a new feat. For our feat, we are going to be taking the Alert feat because we are going to get a +5 to our initiative, and also we can't be surprised, and this character really, really wants to go first. If you go first, you can pop that big AoE fear and completely disable large swathes of the battlefield at one time, so that the rest of your combat goes much smoother. You could also take something here like Heavy Armor Master. Your strength increases by 1 to a maximum of 20, increasing incoming damage from non-magical attacks. Also decreases by 3 while you're wearing heavy armor. You mostly want this for the decrease in damage, but I don't find that it's super useful. You could also take an ability score improvement and get a +2 into your charisma, but we don't have a ton of uses for our charisma at the moment, so we're going to go ahead and stick with an alert bonus. At level 6, we're a little bit late to the party, but we are finally getting our Paladin's level 5 extra attack, and also level 2 spells. With our subclass, we get access to Hold Person and Spiritual Weapon, which are 2 really awesome spells. Hold Person is going to help you get instant crits against enemies, and Spiritual Weapon is also great because you can use it on your bonus action and just do extra damage. For our level 2 spells, we are going to pick up Protection from Poison and also Aid. Aid is a really great spell to give us some extra hit points, and Protection from Poison is a really great buff to put on everybody in your party so that you can just not have poison damage, really. At level 7, we are going to be switching back over to Warlock so that we can get some Eldritch Invocations and a few new spells. For our spell, I am going to be taking Hellish Rebuke because this is a really fun way to use our reaction and do some good fire damage. And for our invocations, I am going to be taking Agonizing Blast and Devil's Sight. You can see here I have a bunch of extra options that have come to me from some other mods, but we're going to be using the vanilla ones, and I'm going to stick with Agonizing Blast. When you cast Eldritch Blast, add your charisma modifier to damage it deals, unless it is negative. So that's really cool. It's just going to give us extra damage when we're doing our range attacks, and we're also going to take Devil's Sight. You can see normally in darkness, both magical and non-magical, to a distance of 24 meters, which is really awesome and really great just to be able to have free dark vision. When we reach level 8, we're going to be taking our 3rd level of Warlock, where we're going to get our Pact boon, and I am going to go straight for the Pact of the Blade. You can summon a Pact weapon or bind the one you are wielding, making it magical. Pact weapons use the wielder's spellcasting ability modifier instead of strength or dexterity, so it's at this point that if you wanted to respec, you could go ahead and dump your strength and put points into charisma, wisdom, dex, and constitution if you wanted to. And that's what I'm going to do in my actual playthrough, but for this, I'm just going to show you. I'm not going to do the respec because I'm already halfway through leveling this. For our new spell, we are going to get access to 2nd level spells again, and I am going to be taking Misty Step here because this is a really great option. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, you probably aren't adding Minthara to your party until you hit like level 7 or 8 when you rescue her from Moonrise, so we might as well just do the respec right when you get her. Because if you're going to go straight for the Pact of the Blade, then good, you might as well. At level 9, we are going to go ahead and move back over to Paladin and take our 6th level in Paladin. And at this level, we're not going to get much. We get Aura of Protection. You and any nearby allies gain a +0 to saving throws. It says 0, but it's not actually a 0. We'll get a nice bonus to our saving throws, which will really help to get us just moving and grooving. We're also going to get access to a new spell, and here you can pretty much pick whatever you want. I don't know why it changes these up every single time. I want aid, I want protection from poison, I want thunderous smite, I want shield of faith, and I want magic weapon. I don't know why it changes them every time. I don't like it. At level 10, we are going to be taking our final level of Paladin because we want access to the Aura of Conquest. You emanate a menacing aura in every direction. If a creature is frightened of you, its movement speed is reduced to 0 while in the aura, and that creature takes psychic damage equal to half of your Paladin level rounded up if it starts its turn there. This is really awesome because it means that when we go ahead and do our fears, if we're in melee range, which we will be, that an enemy just can't run away. So they are in fear and they are trapped, just cowering in fear beneath us while we have our sword in hand and we stab the living hell out of them. Additionally, they're going to take the psychic damage, which is really nice just to have some free damage. And if you are wielding the resonance stone in your party, it will get doubled. Really convenient. Not much has changed in the way of spells here, so I'm just going to go ahead and add Force Weapon. It's a spell from Mr. Spell mods. Why not? Oh, it's a bit warm in here, so I have made a wardrobe change. When we get to level 11, we are going to go back into Warlock for our 4th level there, where we're going to pick up a new cantrip, a spell, and a feat. I am going to be taking Toll the Dead from Mr. Spells because it does 3d8 necrotic damage, possibly more if they have less than maximum hit points, because we don't really have a ton of uses for cantrips at this point, but this is a really fun one. This one comes from Mr. Spells, and it's just really fun, so why not take it? For our spell, I am going to be taking Mirror Image because this is a really awesome defensive option. Create 3 illusory duplicates of yourself that distract attackers. Each duplicate increases your armor class by 3. So when you pop this on your turn, you will get a 9 bonus to your armor class, which just means you'll have a way better chance of not getting hit. Every time that you do not get hit, one of those duplicates is going to disappear, so you'll eventually run out, but it'll be a +9 and then a +6 and then a +3. That +6 and +3 are still both very valuable. And for our feat, we are going to be taking an ASI so that we can go ahead and bump our charisma up to an 18. Because we have taken the Pack of the Blade, charisma is how we calculate all of our spells and our attack damage and rolls. So we are going to go ahead and go with that. And finally, at level 12, we're taking our last level in Warlock for a 7 and 5 split so we can get a few extra goodies. Unfortunately, extra attack from Paladin and Warlock don't stack in honor mode, so we only have 2, which isn't the end of the world. If you're on Tactician or lower, however, which I'm on Tactician, I believe they do stack, so you could potentially have 3 attacks per turn. We get that through our Deepened Pact here. Blade Pact holders gain an extra attack with their weapon. We also get access to 3rd level Warlock spells, and there are a bunch of options here that are really cool. You could theoretically go for Fear if you wanted to, but I think we're passing out so much Fear that we don't need to waste our spell options on this. Instead, you could take something like Counterspell if you wanted to, or Hunger of Hadar, which is the spell I'm going to take. This is a really great use for our concentration slot, and in combination with Devil's Sight, means we can toss this up and then stand on the edge of it, fear our enemies, and literally just trap some of them in place inside the Hunger of Hadar by denying them their movement speed. So imagine getting trapped in Hunger of Hadar and just being like, the Hadar is hungry. Oh no, what do I do? That's what happens to your enemies. And then they take tons of cold and acid damage. Woohoo! For our last Eldritch Invocation, we are going to be taking Mire the Mind for the slow spell because it's another great crowd control option that we could use. This character is definitely more focused on crowd control than its damage. Damage is a nice boost that it has, but it's going to be using its damage and its crits to be passing out those crowd control options through fear and also through slow. You could also take Repelling Blast if you wanted to, because this is a really great one. When you hit a creature with Eldritch Blast, you can push the creature up to 4.5 meters away from you. So if you're in range and you're using that Hunger of Hadar, you can. This is a classic strategy from the game. You can push your enemies back into the Hunger of Hadar and force them to keep taking that damage. But we are mostly going to be in melee range, so we're going to go ahead and just take the Mire of the Mind, so we have it. If you were going to be taking this build up to level 20, I strongly recommend Champion Fighter for an extra crit chance bonus. It'll increase our chance to crit by a 1 on the dice. But because I am not, I'm stopping this build at level 12. We are going to go ahead and stop at 7 and 5. But now that we've gone over the leveling for Paladin of the Absolute Minthara, let's hop on over and look at the gear that really makes this build possible. So because of the fear on crit effects of Mortal Reminder, this build is going to be a crit fisher, like I have mentioned. we are going to want to stack as many crit chance items as we possibly can, because the more crits we do, the more damage we do, and the more enemies are going to fear us. So prior to Act 3, our helmet of choice is going to be the Covert Cowl. This is going to give us a +1 bonus to our dexterity saving throws, but more importantly, while obscured, the number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking is reduced by 1. This effect can stack. You could also use the Dark Justiciar helmet, anything that fits on your head and increases your crit chance by a 1 on the dice is perfect here. Eventually, when we get to Act 3, we are going to upgrade this to Saravok's Sorned Helmet. You gain dark vision up to a range of 3 meters or 15 meters if you already have it. We already had that. Doesn't matter. The number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking is reduced by 1. This effect can stack, so it's going to have the same effect as our previous helmet, but it's also going to add you can't be frightened and cannot be afflicted with other emotion-altering conditions. So that is great, because it means that we're not going to be crowd-controlled as easily. And it's also going to give us a +1 to our Constitution saving throws, which will help a little bit with our concentration checks. For our cloak, you're going to use whichever cloak that you want to. I have here on equipped the Cloak of Displacement, because since we are in melee range, it is going to grant us a disadvantage on attack rolls at the beginning of our turn. Or enemy on the beginning of our turn, it will impose disadvantage on enemy attack rolls against us, which is really great because we're gonna just take less hits. However much I would love to use the Shade Slayer cloak, this character doesn't really hide very often and doesn't have a spare bonus action to use the hide, so we can't really reap the benefits of the cloak. The Shade Slayer cloak specifically requires that you be hiding in order to gain another bonus to your crit chance. So since we're not hiding pretty much ever, not really useful. Instead, we're going to go ahead and give ourselves a little bit of survivability. As a paladin, we have proficiency with heavy armor, which means that we are going to be using the Reaper's Embrace. Up until that point, you could use any heavy armor. Any heavy armor will do just fine. But once you get the Reaper's Embrace, this is a really great one. All incoming damage is reduced by 2, and you'll also get Howl of the Dead. Howl of the Dead is a really cool ability that allows you to let out a bone-chilling howl that numbs all nearby creatures. If you wanted to, you could switch out the Reaper's Embrace for the Ballast Armor, because this build is going to be using piercing damage up close. However, since we're using daggers that don't have a lot of inherent damage on their own, this isn't a huge boost for the 4 AC that we would be losing by dropping our heavy armor option. For our gloves, we're going to be rocking the Cerebral Citadel gloves, which give us the Bless effect every time we frighten a creature, which we do a hell of a lot, so we're pretty much always going to be blessed. You can see here charm or frighten a creature to gain a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and saving throws, and you also get a +1 bonus to your strength saving throws, which is really cool. One thing that we do want to note about this build is that since we're crit fishing with the Risky Ring, which I haven't mentioned yet, our attack rolls aren't quite as important as they once were. You could roll a 12 and have a +5 bonus to your attack rolls, but just because you crit on a 17 doesn't mean that your 12 + 5 will be a crit. Crits only happen on a natural roll, meaning that we need higher rolls, not hit chance bonuses. Hence, the Risky Ring, which is going to give us advantage on attack rolls and receive disadvantage on saving throws. What this means is, like advantage always works, we're just going to roll 2 die every time that we do have our attack roll, which means it just increases our chance significantly. For our boots, we are ultimately going to be going with Blackguard's Greaves, which will give us permanent long strider and a +1 to our athletics checks. For our amulet, we're going to wear the Surgeon's Subjugation Amulet. Once per long rest, when scoring a critical hit on a humanoid, the wearer can paralyze the target for 2 turns. We're doing crits a lot, so this basically just gives us a free paralysis when once per long rest, which is really awesome. And that paralysis is going to lead to even more crits for free. For our other ring, we're going to be using the Killer's Sweetheart. When you kill a creature, your next attack roll will be a critical hit. Once spent, this effect refreshes after a long rest. This is going to give us another free crit per long rest, obviously. After you've used this effect each day, you could switch it out for something like the Ring of Mental Inhibition, because since we are going to be imposing fear on our enemies all the time, they are going to be taking lots of mental fatigue stats. However, that is not super important for us because our fear DC is pretty strong anyway. For that same reason, we're also actually not going to be using the Shield of the Undevout. Normally, you think we would. The shield would normally impose disadvantage on your enemies for your fear effects, but we're going to be passing out so much fear that our enemies won't even have a chance to pass the save, let alone even try. We're also going to be equipping the Deadshot bow once we reach Act 3, because this is a bow which will give us another crit boost. The number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking is reduced by 1. This effect can stack. Boom. Easy. It's also going to give us the wielder doubles their proficiency bonus when rolling range attacks with this weapon, unless they have disadvantage. We're not really ever going to do range attacks. If we are, we're going to use Eldritch Blast. So this is mostly just a stat stick for us. For our melee weapons, we are going to be equipping the Knife of the Undermountain King in our main hand, and eventually Bloodthirst in our offhand. You can see here it's called the Blade of the First Blood in my gameplay. I don't know why. I think it's because I modded it in. So the reason that we want to keep the Knife of the Undermountain King in our main hand is because this is going to be the weapon that we do most of our attacks with. It has a higher innate damage roll than Bloodthirst, which is a 1d4, whereas Knife of the Undermountain King is a 1d6. It's also going to give us an increased critical hit chance by 1. And when you roll a 2 damage or less, re-roll the dice, taking the highest result. So that means we're going to get extra damage. This is kind of like Great Weapon Fighting, but for this short sword. This also gets a +2 weapon enchantment, so that's really great. It's going to give us a little bit of extra hit chance. Whereas Bloodthirst is going to give us another increase to our critical hit chance, which will stack, and another +2 to our weapon enchantment. And normally, there's 2 different effects that can happen with Bloodthirst here. If you keep it in your main hand, you can exploit weakness. Creatures hit with this weapon receive vulnerability to piercing damage. And this would be cool if we weren't doing 1d4 damage, because vulnerability with this is basically just going to mean 8 damage max. So we could do this and have 12. Easy. However, if we keep this in our offhand, we'll get True Strike Riposte. When a creature misses you with a melee attack, you may retaliate and gain True Strike. So that's really cool. Just means we're gonna get a free attack every time that an enemy misses us. Really cool. And it'll also give us a +1 bonus to our armor class, which is fun too. It's kind of like a half shield in that way. With all this gear equipped, we can now get a critical hit whenever we roll a 16 or higher on our attack roll. If we throw in the Elixir of Viciousness, the number you need to roll to land a critical hit is reduced by 1. This will increase our chance down to a 15, which is even better. This is going to give us a 30% innate chance to crit without advantage. But now, let's add in the Risky Ring math, because the Risky Ring is going to give us advantage on every attack roll. Since the ring gives us advantage on our attack rolls, advantage will bump that to a 51% chance for a critical hit with every single attack. And we have 3 of them if you're in tactician mode. That means that on a normal unhasted turn with 3 attacks, we end up with a chance to crit at least once on our turn, somewhere around 80%. Overall, it's 51%. So half of the time, you're going to be, at the very least, you're going to be critting and spreading that fear out. A literal majority of the time. Woohoo! But that's pretty much everything for the gear. Let's go ahead and... So when you start a day with this character, the first thing you're going to want to do is pop your Aura of Protection. You and your nearby allies gain a +4 bonus to saving throws. This is mostly just kind of in a short range, but it's going to apply a nice buff to you. We're also going to use our Pact of the Blade here so that we can bind our Pact weapon. This is going to apply to our Knife of the Undermountain King, which is just going to help so that we can use our charisma modifier with our attacks. Now, one thing about dual wielding is that if you do not tell your game to, you're going to be automatically doing a manhand attack and then also following it up with an offhand attack, and that will use your bonus action without you telling it to. The way to change that is to toggle dual wielding, either down here or I'm not sure where it is in console, but if you are on PC, it's down here, toggle dual wielding. And right now I'm just using both, but if I click it to 1, then it is going to just do the regular attack, and then I will not. So because what we want to do is only attack with our Knife of the Undermountain King. Our Bloodthirst is mostly just a stat stick here to give us the +1 to our critical hit, and also to give us +1 to armor class and the True Strike Riposte. The next thing that you're going to want to do is pop your Armor of Agathis. And this one's not going to give us a huge boost, but it will give us a nice little temporary HP bonus and a little bit of cold damage in return. That's pretty much all the setup for this build, so let's go ahead and pop down into some combat and see what we can do. Alright, so we are here at Worm's Crossing, and we are ready to get started with some combat. I'm going to go ahead and move into turn-based mode and take a potion of speed so that we can get this thing moving. So I am going to use just a regular attack to get combat started. And I'm going to hit Gauntlet Edwina here. Alright, so it is the beginning of combat. We have all of our enemies here, and we are going to start by using Conquering Presence, exude a terrifying presence, possibly causing nearby enemies to become fearful of you. We're going to go ahead and use this, and you can see now that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 enemies all within our area, we're going to go ahead and fear them. We can see each of them failed the save there, so lucky us, all of our enemies are now going to either run away, or these ones that are kind of in this area, you can see the little black aura coming off of them, they are not going to be able to move at all because they are conquered. They now cannot move. So what we're going to go ahead and do to them is hit them with a green flame blade. Start off with some damage. Let's go ahead and let's use a hex so that we can go ahead and pop it on this guy. And we're going to do strength. Now that they're hexed, we're going to go ahead and hit them with some more attacks. We've got a crit to start, 12 and 15. And because we have a crit, let's go ahead and do our Divine Smite. Boom, 20 and 11 again. Now let's do the same thing to Fist Richter here, who is also feared. And because we killed them, we spread more fear here. From our Mortal Reminder, let's get this guy. Executioner, we've killed someone, so we get a free crit. Divine Smite on crit. To be fair, we've gone through all of our level 1 spell slots now, but I don't mind. We can also then go ahead and use our Green Flame Blade spread ability to go ahead and pop it over here. Now we got some extra fire damage. Easy. Now everyone's fearful, so they're going to run away. He can't move. And now is our turn again. Let's go ahead and shut down this archer. I have my archer here as backup because this class is primarily a control class, obviously. He's down, and I'm going to end my turn because I want to let him take care of the rest of the damage. So let's go ahead and do another Green Flame Blade. We are going to move, so we're not going to be able to spread it, but we can still just do that extra fire damage. So now let's go ahead and do some more attacks. We've got a crit. Let's Divine Smite. And then we're going to do another one. Crit again. And we still have more attacks, so we're going to come over here and get Fist Kepso. He's now conquered because he's feared and we are in range, so we're going to attack with a paralyzing critical. Let's hit him again. Crit again because he's been critical. And I still have one more attack. I don't have enough range, so what I'm going to do, I can't use it. No, it requires a full action. So instead, I'm just going to hit him with my bow. That's a crit too. Easy peasy. And he is frightened, so he's not moving anywhere, even though my haste has worn off and I'm lethargic. Skip our turn. He's still fearful. Run, run, run. Skip our turn. Run, run, run. And now we're going to come over here and give him some more shots. Or not. We're going to use our Misty Step. And now he's conquered, so he can't move anywhere. Our enemy is now trapped. Let's go ahead and hit him. Boom. And that activated our Green Flame Blade. Another 10. Critical hit. How cool is that? So many crits, so many smites. It's really just bananas powerful. It's...
Need to find a way.
I love it. It's really fun. But now that all of our enemies are dead, that just about does it for this crit fishing Paladin of the Absolute build for Minthara. What do you think of this Oath of the Conquest multiclass with the Goo lock? Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this, and I will see y'all in the next one.